I watched the Ben Sasse interview on 60 Minutes last Sunday. How many of you saw that or heard about it? Powerful. I've seen it 3 times now. It's on YouTube. You can catch it that way too. And I thought about it for most of the week. And that's really what prompted me to want to share what I'm sharing today. He was a former 54-year-old United States Senator. He's facing terminal diagnosis from pancreatic cancer. And there's something about a man who knows he may not be here in a few months, sitting down to talk about the state of humanity with so much humility and faith that it just cuts through all the BS. He was always known as somebody who worked across the aisles while he was in the Senate. Finally got frustrated because of what was happening in the Great Division. And then he came down with that dreaded pancreatic cancer disease. And so there he was on camera, reddened face because of what radiation and chemo and this experimental drug is doing to him, knowing he had just maybe a couple months left. So I encourage you to catch that interview. It was very powerful. You know, the most common feature of those whose lives have been enriched by facing their death is that they were willing to experience sadness and even intense pain. And he talks about that in the interview, about having lost what they value in life, and then used it, as he is, as energy to transform their lives for the better. One could hear that sadness pulsating through the voice of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as he faced his own pain, social injustice, and always living under a daily threat of death. Sadness is the opposite of the closed, contracted state we call depression. As in the case of Dr. King, it can energize and activate, connecting people on a far deeper level than anger or outrage. I've been involved in the death positive movement for years now, still am to some degree, and I'm fascinated with all the literal research that is coming out about this topic. How somehow death, when people work through the fear and anger and such as Ben Sasse's been having to do and come out, they start getting more involved in things. They start caring more where maybe they haven't cared before. Not everybody, but the research shows there's something powerful that happens with that. As a matter of fact, Death Positive can even talk about how it can increase peacemaking in cities. Fascinating, all the research I've been reading. Now, there's a truth we spend much of our lives avoiding. We will all die. Our breath will one day leave us. Our hands will still fall. Our names will be spoken in past tense. And yet, this is not a message of despair. It's a doorway. Because when we remember we will die, we begin perhaps for the first time to ask, how shall we live? The ancient wisdom called it memento mori. Remember you must die. Not as a threat, not as fear, but actually as an awakening, an invitation to clarity. Because when death comes close, the trivial falls away. Petty grievances lose their hold. That's what Lee Atwater discovered. That's what Hamilton Jordan actually discovered, who worked for Carter. That's what Ben Sasse has discovered. That's what ordinary, not famous people are discovering all the time, because I have served many of them when I was a hospice chaplain, and a couple now as a friend. My parents used to tell me, son, as you get older, you're going to have more friends who pass away. Boy, was that true. And it's a reminder of our own mortality. It's a reminder of what the Buddhists call impermanence. And I find that a beautiful thing, because it reminds me all we have right now is all of us together for this moment. There is no guarantee, even for later today. And I've learned over the years by meditating on this, that is not a morbid thing. It helps me show up and become more present, and maybe, hopefully, a little more playful as well, because I don't know how long I have. Well, petty grievances lose their hold. The need to be right softens. The endless striving for more status, more control, more security begins to look like that song, Dust in the Wind. And what remains? Love, justice, mercy, the aching, holy longing for a world made whole. But here is the deeper truth we often resist. Death is not only something that happens to us, it's something happening among us. Think about it. There are lives cut short by systems that we've learned to normalize. There are bodies worn down by poverty, spirits crushed by oppression, communities grieving losses that did not have to be. Some die too soon because justice came too late. And if we remember our own mortality but ignore theirs, then we have not truly awakened. We've only become more comfortable. To remember that we will die is to realize that every life is unbearably precious. Every breath, sacred. Every person, unrepeatable. Every moment, irretrievable. And so we begin to see injustice is not just a policy failure. It's a theft of life. When dignity is denied, life is diminished. When systems exploit, life is shortened. When voices are silenced, something of the human spirit is buried alive. Perhaps some of you have experienced that, or perhaps some of you know of people who've experienced that. We certainly see some of that happening with the housing challenged in our city as well. So the question becomes, what will we do with that brief and beautiful time that we're all given? Will we spend it protecting our comfort? Well, some will. I understand that. Or pouring ourselves for a more just world? Will we look away from the suffering because it's inconvenient? Or will we allow it to break our hearts open? Because one day, each of us here will be standing at the edge of our own ending. And on that day, it won't matter how much we accumulated, how impressive we appeared, or how carefully we avoided risk. What will matter is this: did we love? Did we stand with the vulnerable? Did we use our voice when silence would have been easier? Did we help bend the arc, however slightly, toward justice? One of the beautiful things about Heartland, and all UU churches actually, is their stance and involvement in social justice. Now more than ever, we all need to be voices for the voiceless. Now more than ever, we need to take a stand for injustice any way we can. And we're all different. We can all do it in different ways. I've come to see, the older I get, it can be as simple as just shine your light wherever you go. Today, you can be an activist. Those of you going to a restaurant, those of you going to a Kroger, those of you going anywhere where there's people, just simply shine your light and look for those opportunities. Maybe someone looks downcast in an aisle, or maybe as you're checking out, you vibe. Don't even have to say a word. Vibe love to that person. They don't know you're vibing them. You can feel it. Quantum physics tells us that. It's all about energy. I'm just learning that I think it's going to be this quiet revolution. It's going to change the world. Each one of us in this room saying, today, I will be faithful to do that. Just wonder what would happen. Because when some stranger comes up to me and says, hey, I love your gray hair, I'll take it as a compliment because I have hair, so yay. It's amazing. It takes such little effort to do those things, or to just be sympathetic. I still remember that time I was at a Target years ago, and there was a lady embarrassed because I think it was food stamps she had and she didn't have enough. Sorry. And as I get older, I get more emotional. And so I just, without even thinking, I said, ma'am, it didn't happen, but I had to say, I said, ma'am, that happened to me once, and I know how that feels. Someone took care of that for me. I'm going to take care of that for you. I don't know what it did for her, but it brought such joy to me. But that's just a simple example how we can be light. I call them lamplight activists. We can just shine our light wherever we go. You see, there's a strange and holy courage that comes from remembering death when you know your time is limited. When you meditate on it, like my Buddhist brothers and sisters, and I practice a lot of the Buddhist meditation in my life now, it has a way of kind of rewiring your brain a little bit. You realize you cannot save your life by playing small. You cannot preserve it by withholding love. You cannot protect it by ignoring injustice. Every one of you in here has a gift, has a talent, has a calling. What is that? It's unique. And when everyone steps into that, it's like a harmony. All the notes come together, and that's beautiful music. And that's what this church has always been about caring for others. And that's really important. So the one thing I want to say is, don't you ever play small. Don't you ever let anybody take your light away. They don't need to be in your life if that's what they're doing. Be around fellow dreamers. That's what Heartland is. That's why community is so important. People believing in one another, and together we can gain great courage for that. So, here's the truth. Your life is already passing. The only question is whether it will be spent or given. And so today, we don't gather in fear of death. We gather in the light of it. We gather to remember that this life is a gift, brief, fragile, and burning with possibility. We gather to say, because we will die, we will not waste our lives on indifference. Because we will die, we will not choose compassion. We will choose compassion over apathy. Because we will die, we will stand and speak and act, not someday, but now. May we become people who live as if every life matters, because it does. May we become people who spend our lives on love, because it's the only that endures. And may we, in remembering that we will die, finally learn how to live. Peace be with you all.